Hey everybody, it's Greg again. Another episode of Unbreakable Spirits, episode 18 already. And today I have a jam-packed show. I want to talk about a few things today. Um, the first thing I want to talk about is longevity. And the simplest definition that I've read for the word is longevity is the ability to last a long time. Now, that's not saying to live a long time, it's to last a long time. We'll talk about that in a minute. Um, well, you have two examples of longevity right here in this room. You have Bud, my friend Bud back there. Hello, Bud. Lauren is sleeping back there. Uh, Bud is a perfect example of longevity. He will be 13 years old in September. And we celebrate in September because we really don't know when Bud's birthday is. He's an adopted guy from Alabama, the rescue dog, and they had no idea what his birthday is. So it could be any day, it could be today. Happy birthday, Bud. Um, but we celebrate it the Saturday after Labor Day because that's the day, the anniversary that we met. When we brought him up from Alabama, we met on the Saturday after Labor Day. That's when he officially peed on my rib cheek. So there you go. So Bud is an example of longevity. I guess I am too, come to think of it. I mean, I've been kicking around a long time. When I was a kid, they told me or my parents that I wouldn't be around very long, maybe just 16, 25 is the average lifespan for someone with my severity of brittle bones. So I'm lucky to still be here. I'm blessed to be here. And I'm 66. So I've lived over double my expected lifespan. So that's longevity. And, a couple other definitions for longevity: durability and endurance. And, durability, I don't know about that with me. I mean, I don't know if you could call me durable after, like about 100, 200 fractured life, but I'm still here, right? So endurance is probably the best word for me, but uh, we're still kicking, man. We're still here. So I wanted to talk about longevity because there's a couple good examples I've been reading about lately. Um, there's this dog in Portugal called Bobby, and I don't know if you guys have read about him lately. He has been deemed the oldest dog, the oldest living dog in the world. Um, and as far as they can tell, the oldest dog ever to live. This, who knows, how far the records go back. But Bobby lives in Portugal. He's 30 years old. And the previous uh, holder of oldest dog in the world was 23. So Bobby has outlived him for a good 7 years. Now, Bobby, when they interviewed they documented from his birth certificate and his vet that he really is 30 years old. And if you see him on this TV report, oh, poor guy, he's walking kind of slow. I guess that would be natural, if if you were the equivalent of Bobby's age, which would be 7 years for a dog, 30 years. I was never good at math. I was about 210 years old, this dog is. That's an old dog. I wonder if he can learn new tricks, old dog, new tricks. Anyway, here's the thing with Bobby. They asked his owner, um, what's the secret behind Bobby's success? Why has he lived so long, his longevity? And the owner said, well, Number one, I feed Bobby people food. Whatever he wants, he gets within reason. Of course, he can't have chocolate, raisins, things that kill them. So Bobby eats whatever he wants. Bobby lives in Portugal on a farm, so he gets to run around, plenty of fresh air. And so probably the most important thing is Bobby has no stress. So I guess I wouldn't have stress either if I was 210 years old and ran around the farm with no leash. But that's the key to Bobby's long life. No stress. Bobby just does whatever he wants to do. So, but you've got a few years to go, 17 years to challenge Bobby, but I'm convinced you'll make it. And when I started thinking about longevity, I looked up, well, who is the oldest person in the world? Where would you say he or she lived? Well, from a little research I did, the oldest person in the world, her name is Maria Brandus, and she's 116 years old, and she lives in Spain. And God bless you, Maria, if you're out there watching. And it's interesting. I looked at the top 10 list of people, the oldest people in the world, and most of them are women, and which ties into the statistics. Women tend to live older than men, and in fact, the top 10 list, there are only 3 people from the United States who are on that current list. And most of the people on the list are from Asian countries, Japan, or France. And they did a interview with a lady who passed away in the 90s. And she, at the time when she passed away, was 119 years old. And they asked her longevity, what was her secret to living so long? And at the time, she had said, good health, blah, blah, blah. But being from France, she also said having a glass of wine every day didn't hurt. So, that makes sense too. But I got to tell you about this workout. I read about this guy recently, and it was really something. This guy, his name is Dr. Howard Tucker. And Dr. Howard Tucker is from Cleveland, Ohio, outside of Cleveland, Ohio. And he just made the Guinness Book of World Records. By the way, Bobby's in the Guinness Book of World Records too, for being the world's oldest dog. But Dr. Howard Tucker just made the Guinness Book of World Records for being the oldest practicing doctor in the world. I mean, this guy just turned 100 years old, and he is still practicing medicine. He's a neurologist, and he still sees patients every day. He is teaching, he has students. I mean, this guy is still going strong at 100. And his wife is 89, and she's a doctor too. She's a psychiatrist, and she's still seeing patients. Amazing. In fact, they're doing a documentary. We filmed a documentary on Dr. Tucker, so I have to keep an eye out on that. Can you imagine 100 years old and he's still practicing medicine? Well, they asked Dr. Tucker what were his reasons for longevity, for living so. And he said, there's 5 things I will never do. He said, the first is, I don't spend my days being retired. And that's interesting because, he said slowed down over the years. I can't do things like I used to do when I was like 80. But he said, but I'm never retired, especially cognitively. He's just been, he keeps reading and he keeps learning. Like I said, he's practicing medicine still. It doesn't slow down because his philosophy, and I think he's right, is if you stop, especially cognitively, especially mentally, you're going to lose it. So he has kept sharp all these years. And he doesn't act like he's retired. He just lives every day. In fact, well, here's number two. Number two reason is he has never been out of shape in his life. Even now at 100 years old. Um, he takes care of himself, He watches what he eats, he watches what he drinks, what he puts in his body, and that's a big deal. And like he said, you gotta think of your body like it's a car. Whatever you put in your car, you put the good gasoline, that's what you're going to get out of it, right? So he keeps in shape. I mean, here's a guy who was all skied when he was in his 90s. The guy's out there skiing. Even now, it says what he does daily is he can't do the exercise regime like he used to do, but what he does is he still does 3 miles a day on a treadmill at 100 years old. So, that's a tough right there. You keep yourself in shape. You could live a long time. He also said the third reason he doesn't smoke, he never smoked. Said he tried smoking one time when he was a kid, and his dad, who was also a physician, said to him, "Now, Howard, why would you want to put all that smoke in your lungs? Don't you want your lungs full of fresh clean air?" And he said, thought about it. When you're a kid and you're a teenager, it might be full of smoke. Like think about when this guy was a teenager, it was like in the 1830s, right? So, I thought about it and said, yeah, he's right. He's another smoke after me. Good for him. He said the fourth reason is never restricts himself, which means that in fact his philosophy of life is make the most of your days, live daily, because you only die once. There you go. So, he does watch what he eats. But he said, I still have a steak once in a while, but I eat a lot of salad. So with every meal, I have greens. I take a drink, I imbibe once in a while, but everything in moderation. You don't do something every day. It's okay. Once in a while, he has a steak, he has a drink, you gotta live, right? But he doesn't overdo it. And everything in moderation with this guy. It's paid off. And then the fifth reason for his longevity is he doesn't let his knowledge, whatever he's learned in life for 100 years, he doesn't let it go to waste. So in other words, he's still teaching. He's teaching other people what he has done over the years. Not only about medicine, but he's teaching people about life. His wisdom, what he has learned in life over the years. He's passing it down to the next generation. So, and here's a guy who's not going to die with everything he knows. He's passing it down. Maybe it'll help somebody else, right? And I guess in a way that's why I look like that, because I just wanted people to know what it's like to have lived the life that I've lived. um, with little boats. And hopefully, especially for the next person down the road who may have little boats, they can read the story and say, you know what, I can make it too. You know, I can have quality of life like this guy had, and there's hope, right? So, so that's Dr. Tucker. God bless him. I'm going to be looking forward to that documentary. I have no idea what's coming out of whatever, but if I hear it, I'll let you know. But it sounds like a pretty cool guy. The other topic I wanted to talk about today is today happens to be the feast day of Saint Bernadette of Lourdes, and whether you're Catholic or not doesn't matter really. This is a little segment about faith, having faith in whatever you believe, whatever your religion is, whatever you believe in something anyway, right? Have faith. Saint Bernadette is one of my favorite saints uh, because I went to Lourdes, and my family took me to Lourdes when I was a teenager. In fact, at the time, I wrote an article which was published in the Catholic Digest way back in the 70s called "The Teenager in Lourdes," and so it was an amazing experience going to Lourdes. Uh, you don't know, Lourdes is a shrine um, devoted to Mary, Blessed Mother, and she appeared there. If you believe in Catholic faith, she appeared there in 1858 to Saint Bernadette, and who wasn't a saint at the time. And so it's been a shrine for a long, long time. And my parents always had the dream of taking the Lord. My mom, she always had this faith, I would say. I mean, she was just like a saint. She had so much faith, more than I ever had. I mean, and she wanted to take me to Lord with hopes of a miracle happening. And I'll never forget it because we went on our own. We couldn't speak French, and we weren't part of a tour group. We just went on our own, and we were in Lourdes for 3 weeks. And what an experience, just going through those gates. Outside of the shrine, they have all kinds of commercials going on. Little shops where they're selling all kinds of rosary beads and little trinkets and water bottles and all kinds of commercialization stuff, right? And here we are, as soon as you enter the gates of the sanctuary where the big basilica is, the grounds where Our Lady appeared, and it's just like heaven on earth. It's like a different world. It's like a different world. That's the best way I can describe it. You're going from the world of commercialism, the craziness of the world, to this place where everything's very quiet and everything's very peaceful and serene. And then, people, when they talk, they speak in whispers. And it's a very holy place, We've talked about this holy ground, that religion is a place of holiness. And so, just a couple of things that I really remember from being in Lourdes. I was lucky enough to bathe in the. You've heard about Lourdes water, and it has these properties. You know what? They did all kinds of studies. What's about this water? Because they've had reports of people who put this water on themselves. You have cancer or something. There's possibility of healing. And what is it about this water? Well, they've they've done studies, testing the water, and it's really no different. It's just typical mountain spring water. But maybe it's the faith. I don't know. I just know I was lucky enough to be one who was able to bathe waters at Lourdes. So I remember what happened. They get them dressed down to underwear and order these usher, whatever you call them, it's your stretcher, and then you and dunk you into this water. It's just like this big rectangle stone um, vessel that's filled with Lourdes water. And it's in this almost like this cave. Now it's really light. It's really odd. You're like in this cave and you hear the water trickling down and splashing everywhere. And they have uh, these stone tubs, I guess you would call them, what you call them, that people just bathe in for like a minute. It's not like they're there to bath and soap and no, they just go in and get out, go in and get out. And this is going on all the if you're lucky enough to be granted the cast to be. Well, anyway, um, it was remarkable. I remember my mom standing at the edge there, dunking me in. They forgot they didn't put my legs in water, and that was like the key part, because my legs were really screwed up when I was a kid, from brittle bones, all the fractures and surgeries. So my mom, I'll never forget it. She had the presence of mind to see that. Quick, she rushed to the water and she got her two hands and she splashed like this, the water up onto my legs. And I'll never forget it. When I came out, there was a rule. You're not allowed to dry. You have to self-dry, you have to air dry. So I remember sitting outside of the baths in the sunshine. This was in August, so it's pretty warm and drying. It was just that very, very special feeling. I don't know how to describe it. Now, a miracle didn't happen. I didn't suddenly get up out of my wheelchair and start walking. But something else happened to me. I do have to say, though, we did meet people there, believe it or not, whether you believe this stuff or not, whether you have faith in it. We did meet people at they have sort of a medical bureau at Lourdes. They have documentation of all the miracles that have occurred over the years, both the major, the instantaneous ones, and the modern ones. And we did meet some people who were here at Lourdes. Very, very inspirational, you know. And I'll say one thing, I wasn't physically cured at Lourdes, but I think I was spiritually cured at Lourdes. And here's the reason why. Before I went to Lourdes, I wasn't really accepting of my disability. I never really was depressed, but I was just sad a lot. Being a kid in a wheelchair, not able to play ball with the other kids, not able to do things that other kids did, a lot of pain all the time. And I worried a lot what would happen down the road, Well, guess what? I met a lot of people at Lourdes who were probably sicker than I was. People with cancer, people who were blind, people with all kinds of diseases, but all kinds of nationality. It didn't matter what race you were, what nationality you were. It didn't even really matter what your disability was or your ailment was. People gathered there at Lourdes. They had one common goal, not necessarily to be healed, although I think everyone had hopes that a miracle would occur. I think people gather at Lourdes, millions and millions of people every year to pray and to gain faith. And I remember there was a group of boys from Ireland, from Dublin, Ireland, and they went to school for blind children. And every summer, a priest, his name was Brother Collins, we met him there, and we corresponded with him over the years, brought a group of these kids to Lourdes every summer. And I met these kids, shook hands with them, all these boys, 13, 14 years old, blind. And I said, you know what? What? You know? And these boys were just so happy to be there, smiling. They're telling me, nice to meet you. And that just touched me so much because, I mean, you know, they were there and they had faith, you know. I mean, why should I complain? People have it a lot worse than I do. And that convinced me, you know, that to accept my fate in life and do the best I can with it. Because that's what these kids were doing. They were making the best of their circumstances. So, you know, Lourdes healed me in that way, where I was convinced by the time I came home that things could always be worse. There was a reason. God always has his reasons, and you know, just because I was in a wheelchair and still am, doesn't mean that that there's no hope. And as it turned out, I think visiting Lourdes was a big part of why I became a social worker, because I wanted to help people in need, people like myself who may have disabilities, or as it turned out, I worked most of my career in nursing homes. People who just needed someone. And so I've never forget my trip to Lourdes, and never forgot meeting those boys from Ireland. And tell you what, I did miss home though, because everything was French. Oh, the newspapers. We'd only be down. We met in August. I mean, this little tiny thing in the paper with the baseball score. How did the Phillies do? No details, no box score, just the score. That's it. And everything, the radio was all French. The food was great though, especially the desserts and the bread. Oh, to die for. So, but I did miss this home. I was homesick, and especially glad to get back baseball in the summertime. But I never forgot Lourdes. So today is Saint Bernadette's feast day, and so that's why I thought I would share that little story of Lourdes with you. The final topic I wanted to talk about today was the Beatles. And I love the Beatles. And a friend of mine, a DJ from New Jersey, the great Steve Trevelise, who I often talk to on WIP Sports Radio Friday nights. And he also has a radio show during the week in New Jersey. Well, he is probably the biggest Beatles fan I have ever met in my entire life. And I've met quite a few Beatles fans. In fact, the guy who, we'll talk about this another time, that I've been writing my next book with Chuck. He was a major Beatles fan, collected all the records, all of them. But anyway, Steve Trevelise, great Beatles fan. And just last week on his radio program in New Jersey, he interviewed May Pang, was John Lennon's lover, and he got to meet her over the weekend too, which I know had to be a big thrill for him. Yeah, down Philadelphia. Anyway, the Beatles, when I was growing up in the 60s, I liked the music, but I was never a big fan. Um, but I grew to appreciate the Beatles as time went on. I appreciated their music and just how much they changed the world. I mean, the Beatles influenced. Now we talk about social media influencers now. The Beatles were influencers in their day and still are. They influenced music. They were way ahead of their times in music, fashion, whatever the Beatles were wearing. All of a sudden, that's what you would see on the streets. Everybody wanted to be like the Beatles, and so I really loved the music over the years, and I've loved a lot of music. Music is a big part of my life, and have had favorite acts and artists and bands, but the Beatles are right up there because not only do I think they're brilliant songwriters and musicians, they just influenced my life a great deal. I remember just like every guy in the late 60s, my Uncle John used to come over and cut our hair in the basement. And he was he learned how to do barbering in the Navy. And Uncle John was quite a guy. He used to play the trumpet in the Navy band, and he learned how to cut hair. So he would bring over his little suitcase, had his razor in there, his clippers, his combs, his towel, his talcum powder. And like once a month in the basement of our house, we'd get a haircut. If that's what you want to call it. Uncle John usually wasn't. He didn't style, but he just took the razor and zip. He would do 5 minutes. He would brush it off with a little. He would call it a foo powder. That was talcum. And he would whisk the powder, and it would be all cloudy and smoky around there. That was probably my favorite part of the ordeal, was the foo powder. It was so cool. But so that was my Uncle John. But on the end of the 60s, early 70s, we wanted our hair to look like the Beatles. And so when I told them, me and my brothers, and we said, we want to style our hair a little different. We don't want to look like G.I. Joe, we want to look like John Lennon all the part. We started letting our hair grow a little longer. That just, poor Uncle John, killed him, because I put the razor away, and he just couldn't do the scissor things, and we ended up starting to go to regular barbers and what they would call styles and stuff. He said, "No, Uncle John, there's nothing against you, nothing personal, but So the Beatles influenced everybody, and they influenced me a great deal. And, I still love a lot of the music. I remember where I was when I first heard Beatles music. The first time I heard the song Yesterday, we were riding down the Jersey Turnpike coming home, and because we had visited relatives in Clifton, New Jersey, everybody has relatives. And we were on our way home. We could see the skyline of New York in the distance. And all of a sudden, on the AM radio, I hear Yesterday. It just floored me. Same way with Come Together. We were pulling into a local Burger King, and which was always a treat when I was a kid. Going to McDonald's or Burger King. All of a sudden, on the radio, you hear, "Here comes old flat top." Yeah, so you have all these memories about the Beatles. I remember where I was when I was doing when John Lennon was killed, and I couldn't believe it when I heard it. I heard it from Howard Cosell on Monday Night Football, and my friend Steve Trevelise was on the radio that night. He was actually DJing overnight when John Lennon was his big man was killed. I don't know how he did it. He had to do the overnight shift, knowing that, and play Beatle music all night and get the reactions from people on the phone about John Lennon. Anyway, the Beatles were just such a big part of our life, and still are. And I've never met a Beatle before, and probably never will. But I just had to relate to you guys what they've meant to me over the years. So, favorite song, Here Comes the Sun, George Harrison. What a bright, cheerful song, right? And that's what's cool about the Beatles. Their music will live forever. Now there's a whole new generation of people discovering the Beatles, right? And when McCartney and Ringo are gone, I mean, the Beatles are going to live on. You know, not every time they're around the area, I try to catch them in concert because who knows how much longer they'll be touring, right? So, but we have the music, we have the records, and we have the memories. So that'll be everlasting. And the Beatles kind of tie in to what the start of this program, longevity. Again, definition, the ability to last a long time. And that certainly applies to the Beatles. With that, I am going to go for now. And thanks a lot for tuning in to today's program. I'm sure I'll see you during the week ahead. I have more guests who are lined up to come on the program. I can't wait. They have inspirational, hopeful stories to share with all of us. And that's what it's all about. That's why we're here, to share inspiration, to share hope, share smiles. Hopefully, we make you feel good out there. Because I'm certainly inspired by a lot of you, that's for sure. So maybe we can inspire each other, right? I hope so. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you guys again soon. Have a great Sunday and a great week ahead. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.